So we've talked about arrays, we've talked about lists, and both of those types they're strongly typed. So we know what the data type is, and it only allows one data type. So all the values have to be the same. With ArrayList, this is a non-generic collection. And with a non-generic collection, it is not strongly typed. So it can store values that are different data types. And so it is a little bit more flexible than arrays and lists, but the flexibility does have a price. And sometimes the C# compiler gets confused about what data type it is working with. And when that happens, you get an exception error or a runtime error. So you do need to be a little careful when you are using an array list. So to create an array list, you use the keyword ArrayList, which is kind of like your data type. Okay, it's the type of collection. And then you have to give your array list a name, set that equal to new array list. And then you have a left and right parenthesis. And you can include an initializer list, but that list is optional and the curly braces are not required. Okay, so if we want to create one, we could just say array list account equals new array list. You can do it just like this. We don't have to include the curly braces. So adding data to the array list is very similar to adding data to a list. We can use an initializer list, or we can use the add method, the add range method, the insert method, or the insert range method. And those methods operate the same in an array list as they do with a regular list. Okay, so an initializer list, because the array list is not strongly typed, that means you can put different data types into an array list. So this example, I've got a string and I have a double beginning balance, and you can see I've got array list equals new array list, and I'm putting the string in, and I'm also putting the beginning balance, which is numeric. Okay, and it allows that because the array list is not strongly typed. So I've got a table of the methods and some examples for you to look at, but these operate the same way as they did with lists. So you take your array list object.add, and again, this is just like lists where you are going to give it a variable name or the value you want to add. Where it is different from a list is that they don't have to be the same data type. I mean, you can add a character, you can add a Boolean, you can add a string, whatever it is that you want. For insert, it's the array list object.insert, and then you give it the index number that you want to add the value at. Okay, and it can be a variable or a value. Okay, so it's just like list. The difference is that the data type doesn't matter. Okay, and so add range, insert range works the same as it did for list. So it's your array list object dot add range. And so this would be an array that you created specifically to add values. Right, and so insert range is the same. You are going to take your array list object dot insert range, give it the index where you want to place those values, and then you've got your array list name. Okay, and so looking at the examples, add range is going to add to the end. So I've created an array list, and you can see I've got names and I have dollar values. Okay, and then for here, I actually am creating another array list with names and values. And then I'm taking my original array list and I am using add range, and I'm adding my new array list in. And then for the insert range, it's the same thing. I've got an array list that I created that has, string and numeric data. I create another array list with string and numeric data. And then I take my original list, dot insert range, I give it the location where I want these new, in this case, members added. And then I give it the name of the array list that I want to add in. Okay, so those are the add methods that we can use. And as far as retrieving data from an array list, because the array list has different data types, we can actually use var, kind of short for a variable, and we can use that to store what is in our different elements within an array list. Because when you use var, it's going to take on the data type of whatever the value is that you are placing in the variable. So in order to use var, you have to have a value that you are putting into the variable. Okay, so here I got var comment. I love programming. I'm putting a string into comment. So because I'm putting a string into comment, the compiler knows that this is a string. Okay, over here I've got var score. I've got 100. So it's going to interpret that as an integer. So it is going to make score an integer. Okay, it determines what the data type is based on what you're putting into the variable. So var is a nice way of handling data that you are retrieving from an array list, because you don't always know what the data type of a particular element is going to be. So you can use var and whatever you're going to call it equal to the array list, and then you index in and retrieve a value. A few things that you should be thinking about if you are going to use var is that you can use it to declare variables, but you can't use it in a method's parameter list or as a return data type. Those have to be strongly typed, and var obviously is not strongly typed. And also, if you're going to use var and you're creating a variable, you have to initialize it. You have to set it to a value, because that is how C# knows what the data type is. And it needs the data type to actually reserve the space in memory and store the value. So once we have created an array list, it can be sorted, but you can only sort an array list if all of the items in the list are the same. They have to be the same data type. Otherwise, you can't sort it. And then to retrieve the data from an array list, you can use a for each loop. And if you're going to use a for each loop, the data type that you're going to give it is var. If you use a for loop, you can use the count method to determine the size of the array list. And that's very similar to what we did with a list. Okay, and so we're going to take a look at sorting using sort and reverse and count to prepare for our data retrieval. And we're also going to take a look at using for loops and for each loops. So let us take a look at the examples or the table here. So again, sort can only be used if everything that's in your array list is the same data type. Okay, and then it's just the name of your array list dot sort. So here's an array list that I have all strings in, so not a problem to sort. Okay, also you can reverse sort. Again, has to have the same data type, but here I've got a members list. They're all strings, so I can use reverse. Count will simply count the number of elements that are in the array list. If you are going to use a for loop, you can use ArrayList, whatever the name is, dot count. Okay, and that will give you the total number of items that are in that list, so you can loop through it. Okay, and here is an example. And then for each, if you are going to use for each, instead of giving it a data type, you are going to use var. Because var can actually handle whatever it retrieves from the list. So if, let's say at, position 0, index 0, it's a string, it'll handle that. If index 1 is a number, it'll handle that. Okay, so here's an example of an array list that has string and numeric data. And as long as you use var, okay, it will handle what you are retrieving. To remove the items from an array list, it is the same as removing from a list. So we've got the same methods: remove, remove at, remove range, and clear. Okay, so we look at this table, and you're really not going to notice differences here. So it's still, you take your array list object dot remove, and you are going to give it the value or the index. Okay, and remove at it basically works the same. Remove range works the same as it did for a list, where you give it your beginning index, the number to remove, and clear just gets rid of everything. So we are going to take a look at some programming examples for the array list. So we're taking a look at this. The initial list is all string data. Once that list is cleared, a new one is added using insert range. And the new array list has double data in it. And it allows that because it does not care what kind of data you add. So here we've got a member array list with all text. And you can see we add Judy. She gets added to the end. We remove poor Taylor. We remove the first member, Frankie, and then we sort. We print out our little sorted list. And then we remove the first two people. Well, Frankie's gone, so let's see. Taylor's gone. So I believe it'll be Tyler and Jamie. So we end up removing some people. And then we print out who's left, and then we just clear everything out. Okay, and then we take array list. We're creating a new one called new members, and this one has text and numbers. And then we are inserting into our members. Now, initially, remember, members just had text, but we are inserting at position 0 our new members. So when that happens, our members array list is going to become Minnie, 20, Mickey, 15, Donald, and 30. Okay, and then we go ahead and insert Pluto at position 2. Position 3, we insert 20. And then we print everybody out. And to print them out, because these members, the names kind of go with the membership dues, you can see that we are printing out the member. So the first time through, it's going to be index 0 here, and the dues are right next to them. So then we are printing out at index 1 the dues. Okay, so the next time through, and you'll notice that we're adding 2 each time. So the next time through, it is going to print out Mickey and 15. Okay, and we add 2, and the next time through, we're going to get Donald and 30. Okay, so when you use an array list, you do have to think about how you are storing that storing that data and how you want to retrieve it. Now, if we want to just use the var in a for each loop, that would, in this case, I've got it printing horizontally. So it is, the first time through, it's going to retrieve Minnie and then put a little space in, and then it's going to retrieve 20, put a space after that, and then it's going to do Mickey and 15, and it's just going to print them horizontally. Okay, and you can see it, that's exactly what it did. So here we've got, this looks like in another account example. So we get the beginning balance, we get the ending balance, and we create an array list where we put the name and the beginning balance. We want to know how many checks they're going to enter, and we retrieve that size. And we get into a little loop with the size, enter the check amount. And we take the amount, we subtract it from the ending balance, and we are adding it into our array list. And then at the very end, we add the ending balance. Okay. And so this is pretty straightforward. It's all numeric, although it does not have to be in an array list. In fact, we took their name and put it at the beginning. So we've got their name in here, and then following their name is all of the numbers. Okay. So when we print this back, we've got, here's your account activity. We're printing out their name, which is the very first thing in our array list. And then the beginning balance, we know that is at index 1. So index 0 is the name, index 1 is the beginning balance. After index 1, until we get to the last value. So between index 1 and the last value, those are all the checks that we wrote. So we're going to start indexing at 2. And then we're going to stay in here until we get to the last value. Okay, and so those represent our check amounts. Okay. And after we're done entering all of our checks, then we do the ending balance, and that is going to be the last value that was added to our array list. Okay, so that's count minus 1. That gives us our last value in the list. So that concludes array lists. The lab exercises are going to have you practice an array, a list, and an array list.